always try to stay positive about any project that you do, because the minute you start to feel like you don't want to do it, then you shouldn't be doing it, you know?
Welcome back to the Indie Spotlight Podcast, episode 3. Thank you once again for joining us. As you know, on this show, what I like to do is pull back the curtain on independent filmmaking to help share some insight on the process of what goes into making a movie. In case you missed last week, we talked to the amazingly gifted director out of Cleveland, Nick Molbach. Today, I have with me another fantastic filmmaker, Richard Russell.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, hey, absolutely, absolutely. So, Rich, my first question for you is this. Okay. So, for anyone that's watching here today who may not be familiar with your work or familiar with Dark Hearts Productions, what can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and the kinds of movies that you like to make?
Well, the first thing is, if you know me, or if you've seen my work, I apologize in advance. Well, basically, I make some pretty, I guess you can say, some pretty depressing content for the most part. I've been told that some of my films have actually made people feel a little uncomfortable, which is great. That's a great feeling. But other than that, it's just let's see. God, I'm from Massillon, Ohio, and I started Dark Hearts Productions literally right after I graduated high school. I want to say around maybe like 2014, 2015 is when I officially started Dark Hearts. I actually had another production company called Bad Films 100, and I ended up parting ways with that group of friends. We would always get together every weekend, and we would make all these little short films. But ultimately, creative differences, and then we just kind of like, okay, you guys want to go this route, I want to go this route, we'll just go ahead and part ways. So I founded Dark Hearts Productions. Don't know why I called it. It just made more sense. It just kind of made sense to me, I guess, because every time I would write a new script or a new story, I was kind of realizing, like, well, every character I write is dark in some sort of matter. Like, they have like a black heart, and I was like, wait a minute. So, black heart, no, dark heart, okay. Found out there was another guy called Dark Heart on YouTube, so I was like, Dark Hearts, we'll just go with that.
There you go. Hey, that works. That works. So you mentioned YouTube. Is that where people can go and check out some of the films that you've done before?
Absolutely. All of my work is on YouTube. Just type in Dark Hearts Productions, and usually it pops up.
Very cool. So when did you first decide that you wanted to get into filmmaking? Where did that passion, that drive start?
That actually started... It started when I was young. I was roughly, I want to say 11 or 12 years old. And I remember my dad bought me a copy of Saving Private Ryan, a wonderful Steven Spielberg film. And I remember I watched the film and I loved it. And I decided to watch the behind the scenes making of that movie, and just watching like the technique and how Spielberg prepared his actors to be ready for that film, and also like the basically the amount of work that they put into that. And I don't know, there's like that just sparked something in me, and I decided like I want to give that a chance. And so, because I've always had the creative bug. I initially wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. I have stage fright, so there's no way that was going to work out. And then I delved into writing a little bit more. And writing was one of my favorite subjects. Did wonderful in writing in school. Did horrible in reading. Don't know why. That doesn't make sense, but that's how it was. But I don't know. When I got my first camera when I was about 13, that's when all the creative juices started flowing, and I just started, I started making little videos that will never see the light of day. Sorry to say. So.
I think we all have those. If anyone's been following me since middle school, they could tell you about Mr. Wood and Sam. You don't want to know about that channel.
I did horrible link syncing videos to Backstreet Boys.
Okay. I don't know if it's as bad as I did Minecraft in real life.
Well, I do remember there used to be a video of me. I'm in my room holding my pug, dog I had at the time, and I'm wearing a Darth Vader mask and dancing with her, dancing to I think it was either Jesse's Girl or Backstreet Boys, one of those two.
We all have our moments. We have our moments, okay?
I was 13.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you this, though, because obviously you kind of come in a position, like a lot of indie filmmakers, we write, we direct, we shoot, and we kind of wear these different hats, whether it be in post-production as an editor or, what have you. Let me ask you this. If you only could do one job, one part of making a movie, what would it be and why?
That's a tough one. I love all the jobs. I love being the cinematographer. I love being the director. I love writing a lot. But honestly, if I had to pick one, honestly, it would have to be the cinematographer. Honestly, there's just something about. I mean, in my current state, I'm still learning as every filmmaker does. I'm still learning on how to direct my actors, how to learn to talk to actors just a little bit better. But when I have my hands on a camera, I don't know, it makes more sense. It's like I can direct it easily. I come up with wonderful shots on the fly. So if I would have to pick one, it would have to be a cinematographer.
Cool. I can say firsthand, experience-wise, I've definitely seen your cinematography, both in your own projects as well as on In the Hands of Fate. And what I'll say is, you have an eye and a vision for composition that is completely unrivaled. I cannot compete. To where I think I have these really great ideas for shots, and you come in and you say, hey, I have this idea, and next thing you know, you're using a body to help frame around an actor, and you got him perfectly aligned on the right rule of thirds, and I'm like, where do you get this? Where does this, what are some of those influences that you wear on your sleeve in terms of how you come up with some of these shots?
I would have to say a lot of it when I come up with shots for my own projects or for your project, or even most recently I worked on Shadow Dome for a day. Honestly, when someone or I have a shot list in front of me, I will study that shot list to no avail. But half the time when I'm on set, I quickly realize what I have here on the shot list isn't going to work. Something else needs to be a little bit more. And I guess my influence for some of my taste for cinematography is that I love the look and style of, everyone loves the director and how their styles look. But to me, the director is nothing without the DP,
Yeah.
And prime example would be the Coen brothers. I love the style of all of their films. And I love that they always use Roger Deakins as their cinematographer. I really love that. And Roger Deakins, he knows how to use natural lighting perfectly. And God, man, Roger Deakins, he really just, I don't know, man, just I think when I think of great cinematography, he's the first cinematographer that pops in my mind. There was a movie called Come and See, which was a World War II film. That movie has some brilliant cinematography, and I would love, and I take a lot of good inspiration from what I've seen from that film, because there's this one shot in the film that is absolutely outstanding. It's where it's a close-up of the main character, and they do this split effect with the lens, where you can actually like everything in here is focused, but everything right here is out of focus, and you just slowly see what's happening in the background. That I love that shot a lot. I was like, man, I want to use that for one of my own films. So yeah, I would just definitely say is I would study the director for the directing style, but I would also see okay, who shot this film, and then be okay, what do they do to kind of what makes their work best for them, and what can I take from them to learn to help my films and your film come out and look a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely. It's cool when you can find someone whose style that you really mesh and vibe with and kind of pull from that. So going into your own projects, You've done quite a bit over the years in terms of making short films, and you're getting ready to head into production on your first official feature.
Mm-hmm.
How have you evolved over the years as a filmmaker and some of the different ways that you approach going into some of these projects?
Be a lot more prepared. That was the one thing I was always struggling with, in a sense. There were some productions I was on where I was not prepared at all, and somehow, some way, luckily, in most cases, I was able to pull it off. There was one production I did where I was not prepared at all, and I still kind of that's like my biggest regret is, how lackluster I did with that film, not just on the cinematography side, but on the editing side and the directing side. But also, when it comes with the shadows, I have a wonderful team who are willing to help me out. That's the one thing that I've involved more. I've started to bring more people in to help me out with certain things that I can't do by myself. Prime example, I have you as my DP for shadows, and working with you, and working with people like Ian Arnold, and working with Tyler Thomas and Larry, and I didn't get a chance to work with Larry DeBose, unfortunately, but I wanted to.
I can tell you Larry's an awesome person. I love Larry.
I love Larry too, and I've met the guy twice, loved him instantly. Would love to work with him on a set seeing how some of the shots that he did for your film, he's definitely a guy I want to have on my set, to be like, hey, I trust you, do what you need to do. I would also say that how else I've involved is not just bringing in cool talent, not just on the behind the scenes side, but I've also brought in some new talent that I've from on the acting side I've always wanted to work with, and I'm excited to work with. So there's that. Another thing is also too, when with prepping for this film, is always learn to take mental breaks every single day. It's a little bit frustrating sometimes, but I'm looking forward to it come next year.
So let's talk a little bit about Shadows. What can people expect from that movie? What is Shadows of Thulis about?
Shadows of Thulis is about a broken man by the name of Mike who has thrown his whole life away. He's a nonstop alcoholic, and he gets into a huge verbal argument with his only daughter, and he decides to go out for another drinking binge, and he ends up meeting this individual by the name of Thulis. He's like, hey, I need a ride to the next gas station to grab something. Can you please help me out? And he's like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. Trying to be a good Samaritan. And the two decide to take a ride down the road to the next town where there's gas, and he just happens to realize that this guy's pretty cool because they start talking about life and everything. But slowly he starts to realize that he's not who he says he is. He's definitely he's a bad boy, is basically that's the best way I could say it. And then pretty much after that, after Thulis has taken everything away from Mike decides to go on a journey of revenge to get the killer.
Cool. Sounds very good, and obviously it's an adaptation of your original short film Thulis that did very well. What lessons between making that short film and some of the other projects that you've made are you carrying into how you approach going into Shadows now?
Biggest one is check your ego at the door. That's the biggest one I've learned, and then I'm carrying with that with Shadows. Again, make sure that make sure that everyone's on the same page, everyone is prepared, knows what they're getting themselves into, everything. I would also say just kind of I like to joke around and just say hey, just we're making a very dark movie, so let's make sure that in between takes, let's throw in some jokes every once in a while to kind of lighten the mood up just a little bit. So that's what I'm taking in from it. And I've been rewatching the original short film and just kind of studying what I did wrong in that short film and what I could have, I wouldn't say got wrong, but what I thought worked then
and what could work better now, you know. So take the original concept that I did and then just kind of pretty much improve on everything, like, you know, because I remember when we shot the car scene in the short film, we literally were, it was the middle of summer, in the middle of the day. We threw a blanket over the car, and it was 105 degrees outside. and I'm working with a one camera system, which was me, and I'm getting close-ups of Joseph Merlin, and then I'm getting coverage of Brett Voyna, and then poor Allison Marie Rogers, she's outside, she's shaking the car trying to make it look like it's moving.
Wow. It's crazy, you know, like kind of, you know, where you kind of pick up from, you know, what you tried in the past and like maybe ways to do it in the future. Like even in The Hands of Fate, we did that whole shake the car thing, but I tried to do it at night, and you know, some of the most of that stuff didn't really end up making it in the movie. Honestly, a lot of that stuff ended up getting completely hit the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I know about the certain shot that got put on the cutting room floor.
There was a very fun shot. It was of the rear view mirror, and we got a nice like headlights coming through the mirror. I thought it was super duper suspenseful.
Yeah, but you put me in the back of this tiny clown car that belonged to Sophia. And Sophia, if you're watching, I don't regret saying that. And just trying to get this shot, and literally a shot that was only supposed to like last what, a second, 2 seconds at most.
Yeah, it was literally going to be 1 second, if that.
Yeah, I was in that position for 10 minutes.
Well, as Sophia has told you to grow a pair of ovaries. It's her words, not mine.
I know,
it's her words.
I know.
That's what she said. So let me ask you this. Moving on past the actual production side of it, what's been the process like of writing the script? I know we went through a few drafts of it. How has that evolved, and what have you kind of brought into your writing style?
The one thing I can definitely say, and I've learned this from a lot of filmmakers, Kevin Smith, and also a good friend of mine, James L. Edwards, even told me this. Never hesitate to put some of your own personal demons into your script. When it came to writing the first draft for Shadows, the very first draft no one actually read, the story actually took a lot weirder turn. In the first draft, I actually had ghosts involved in the film. I'm going to get a little movie trivia here. There was a film called Topper from 1937, and Cary Grant was in it. And him and this, I can't remember the actress' name in the movie right now, but him and Cary Grant and his wife, they get bumped off, so they end up haunting their lawyer to help them find out who did this to them, and then, you know, pretty much go from there. So I was going to take that concept and do that for Shadows, where the character would see ghosts of it, you know, ghosts from his ghost of his daughter. And unfortunately, the more I thought about it, the more I was just like, okay, this isn't going to work. But it was a good idea, but it came off as cheesy. So I nixed that. Started from scratch, and so the official first draft, I am happy. I wouldn't say happy, but I am definitely willing to say that I was very angry when I wrote that first draft. You ought to know you read it.
Yeah. Wanted to know if you needed a hug. It was dark. It went to some really low places.
Let me just say that when we had to delay the film, the smart thing for me to do was tone down how dark that first draft was, and I gave a lot more characters arcs. Like, okay, like I put myself in, like, it's like, okay, the best way I can say it is like, I'm writing a scene for these two characters. I want to know where they're going to take me into the story. And a lot of times I was in love with everything that I wrote. And there was a couple times where I was like, okay, I love it. Go back to the next week. I don't like it as much, so let's go back. And then fix it. Okay, now I absolutely love where it's going. Go back the next week, still love it. Okay, we move on to the next scene. So that was mostly the process, is like questioning, trial and error. I would even send it out to a few people for feedback. And there was, I think the ending for Shadows, I think got changed like a total of 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So
I've definitely I love, we can't say it, but I
Yeah.
could just say this, and for anyone watching, the only thing about the ending that I can say is that it's a good ending. That's the only thing I can't say is that I enjoy it. I can't say what it is, but I can say I like it, right?
yeah, it's definitely it's a powerful one. I will say that.
Yeah. So there's a lot more too that goes into development and that goes into pre-production than just write the script, go on to set. What challenges have you faced and overcame heading through that process of development, heading through that process of pre-production? What were some of the biggest challenges that you've had to face before going on to set that we're going to be soon?
Biggest challenges I would say is I have run into is making sure that the locations that we got were locked. That was one challenge I was having for a little while. Casting was a huge challenge for me. I had two wonderful people help me out, and it was just some creative differences between like certain, like, okay, what about this, what about this, how about we do this, and it just was like, okay, let's just figure this out. It's not, let's not get down each other's throats. That was one of the challenges I was having, just difference of opinion, difference of different creative differences, and it was just like, okay, well, we'll just we'll take that and we'll just kind of like, let's see if I can, we'll just kind of like meet in the middle, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was one of the many challenges I ran into. I'm not going to go into too much details, but yeah.
So what advice would you give to young new filmmakers that are going into making a movie, having lived through some of these challenges? What advice would you tell them of some ways that they can overcome that themselves?
Best advice I can give to anybody is like, find people that are willing to help you. Keep your passion. Always try to stay positive about any project that you do. Because the minute you start to feel like you don't want to do it, then you shouldn't be doing it. And on top of that too is, I've run into some cases where I was like, do I really want to do this anymore? But then I just kind of like, I sit there and I think, or I rant to somebody, and I just go, wait a minute, why am I wasting all this time and energy ranting about this, and then let's just move on. Let's just keep going. Let's move forward. Let's keep trucking. So that's the advice I can definitely give somebody. Stay passionate. Stay positive. If you find wonderful people that are willing to help you out, keep them. Because they'll help you out in the long run.
Definitely, it's definitely a lot of build your team, build a strong foundation, build a strong team of people that support and believe in the project that you're working on, because it's only going to help further and elevate where ultimately the project goes. And I like what you said earlier, like check your ego at the door, because it's not about you, it's about, in this case, it's about Shadows of Thulis, or in my case, it was about In the Hands of Fate.
The moment your ego gets involved, that's when everything starts to crumble. That was an issue that I was having last year. My head got a little too big, and it was just like, and I was realizing like, oh my God, like what the hell am I doing? Like what's going on? Why am I acting like this? And then I finally just, that's when I was like, just put it at the door. Actually, a good friend of mine even told me that when you get feedback from anybody, from like your friend or your producer or your actor, whatever, don't take it personal. Don't ever take anybody has any feedback, any little nitpicks, whatever. Do not take it personal, because if you take it personal, you are just putting yourself in danger. I ought to know. I've taken feedback personal before, and I have regretted taking things personal, because you can't do that. You can't take anything, any feedback, any negative review, whatever the case may be. You cannot take that personal, because as soon as you take that personal, that's going to slow you down.
Yeah. 100%. I agree entirely.
Yeah.
So I think this has been a very informative and educational episode of the Indie Spotlight podcast. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of key points anyone that's either watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify can really pull from this. But as always, I want to end the show the way I always do, and that is the hardest question I could possibly ask. You're stranded, desert island. You got 3 movies, and you're a movie buff. You've seen more movies than probably anyone on the planet not named Quentin Tarantino. Okay? This is a hard question. You got to only pick 3 movies. These are the only 3 you can watch the rest of your life. What are they and why?
I hate this question.
Oh, I hate it too. Don't ask it back to me.
All right, so I will definitely say I'll throw in one comedy. It would have to be Clue. Clue is one of my favorite comedies of all time. It's actually my second favorite comedy. My favorite comedy of all time is Young Frankenstein, but for some reason, Clue would be like the go-to because Clue is God. How can I describe Clue? I mean, like if you played if you played the board game and you get bored with it. I mean, like honestly, the movie is just it's funny from beginning to end. It starts off very slow, but then it just gets funnier and funnier as the time goes on. And plus, it has Tim Curry. If you don't like Tim Curry, Tim Curry, then there's something wrong with you. I say what I said. Other movie I would have to pick. I will throw in a Tarantino. It would have to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Take that back. It would not be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It would be Django Unchained. Django Unchained is probably my favorite Tarantino movie, honestly. I love Reservoir Dogs. I love Pulp Fiction. I love Jackie Brown. I love all of his movies except for Death Proof. And something about Django is just like the style of that film. It's a film I can turn on and never get bored with it. It has a great story. It has a great soundtrack. I mean, it's one of those movies where I'm just like, I never thought I would hear a Tupac Shakur song playing when Jamie Foxx is in Candyland. So that would be my second movie. My third movie, this might be a bit of a controversial pick, but my third movie I would pick would have to be, it would have to be. Can you cut this part out? I don't actually like what I'm saying here. So my third movie would be The Green Mile. Green Mile is my favorite movie of all time. That movie does everything right that I absolutely love. That I think it gets perfect from beginning to end. It's a beautiful story. It makes you feel emotions. It has some very funny moments, especially with Mr. Jingles. Brilliant performances. It's my all-time favorite Frank Darabont film, and on top of that, I would have to say that it's it's just, I don't know, it's just a perfect movie in my opinion, The Green Mile. So those will be my 3: Clue, Django Unchained, and Green Mile.
Hey, I'll tell you what, that's definitely a diverse pick. It gives you something a little bit, and after you cry watching The Green Mile, you can put on Clue and laugh, and then feel like a badass watching Django. So yeah. There you go. Hey, so before we close everything out, where can people find you on social media if they want to follow you and keep up with your work?
I'm currently on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, Richard Russell. You can find me on Instagram, Dark Hearts Productions. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm on X. I'm on Treads. I'm on TikTok, and of course I'm on YouTube. Majority of the handles are just Dark Hearts, Russ, Dark Hearts Production. So you just type in Dark Hearts, and Richard Russell, I usually will pop up. So.
Or the other move you could do to make life easier is go down in the description, and I'll have all that as well as my socials linked to that as well. Blue Sky, I've never heard of that one, but real quick, what is Blue Sky?
It's like Twitter.
It's like Twitter?
It's by the same people who used to run Twitter, and
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, definitely. We'll have those down there in the description. But I want to say thank you again for being on the episode.
I'm sorry you had to hear me ramble.
Hey, no, that's what people came here. That's what people came here to see. But hey, here's the thing. If you are enjoying this series for the Indie Spotlight podcast and you want to keep up to date with, learning more information on independent film and hearing from other people, other professionals that are in this industry, hear their stories, hear some of their advice that they have, make sure that you follow us on Spotify, on YouTube. Make sure that you that you hit that bell for notifications, and that you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more independent filmmaking content. And be sure to go back and check out our previous episodes where I talked to some other great filmmakers, Nick Molbach and Johnny K. Wu. And stay tuned. In January, we're going to be picking this back up with some brand new guests. We will take a little bit of a break here for in between Christmas and New Year's. But stay tuned in January. We're going to have a lot more fantastic episodes in store for you all, where we're going to talk to various people, whether we're talking to directors, makeup artists, actors, you name it. Anyone and everyone in the film industry is welcome on this show, and there's something to learn from everybody. But anyway, guys, as always, until next time, that's a wrap.